I can remember when I was doing the yo-yo dieting for 20 years, I would go into every plan that I started telling myself, I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to be
Right.
perfect. I'm going to be their best client ever. I'm going to lose weight faster than anybody else. And inevitably, as diets go, at some point in time, like you mentioned, somebody brings pizza in on Tuesday. Something happens in your life. Like we don't live in a bubble where we can be perfect. And
Right.
nobody is perfect and nothing is perfect.
Hello, and welcome back to Her Hormones Empowerment Restoration. Today's episode is for every woman who's ever looked in the mirror, felt discouraged by the scale, or wondered why, what used to work just doesn't work anymore. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Julie Krejci, certified health coach and creator of the Lifestyle 180 weight loss solution. With over 18 years of experience coaching women in weight loss clinics and a powerful personal journey of losing 40 pounds and keeping it off for over 2 decades. Julie knows firsthand what it means to break free from the dieting cycle and build a sustainable, joyful relationship with food and body. Julie helps women over 45 shift their habits, mindset, and metabolism so they can finally feel confident in their skin without cutting out all the foods that they love. Today, she's here to share how real change is not only possible but doable, especially through life-changing seasons like perimenopause and beyond. Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited for this conversation. I just think that it is so relevant anymore. I think, a bunch of my clients and everybody I talk to is going through these kind of changes. And so I'm just so excited for this. Let's start though with your story and your journey. Can you take us back to that turning point when you realized that nothing was working the way it used to be and that something had to change? Can you start us with your story?
I sure can. And first of all, Mindy, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm just super excited to share my story and to help women out there that are struggling with weight loss. My turning point was in July of 2004, so a little bit over 20 years ago. And I can clearly remember the moment. I bent over to tie my shoes and it actually hurt to tie my shoes. And it wasn't just a little bit uncomfortable, but it was actually like physically painful. And it was because I was carrying so much extra weight that something that simple just it felt hard. And as I stepped on the scale, I saw a number that I hadn't seen for a long time. I was actually 1 pound heavier than when I had gone in to deliver my last child. And that hit me really hard. And the reason why is because, well, first, I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way I looked. My clothes, of course, weren't fitting. I felt a little ashamed. I mean, I had yo-yo dieted for about 20 years. So I had been through this a lot, but I had never been that heavy, of course, other than being 9 months pregnant. And so I had this pattern of I would do a restrictive diet, I would lose the weight, and then of course I would put that weight back on. So the more I did that, really the more ashamed and, you know, self-conscious that I felt. And just at this point, at my heaviest ever, I didn't like what I was seeing. I didn't like who I was. And I knew something needed to shift, but there was also this realization that diets don't work. And I
100%.
thought, I
Mhm.
can't do the same thing over and over again. I can't go through this again. I can't lose this weight and put it back on. And so in that moment, I made a decision to do something different. And really in the past, when I had done all those yo-yo diets, I wanted to fit into my clothes. I wanted to look thin. I wanted to look good in the mirror. It was all kind of external. And at this moment, I started thinking about my health. And I thought about
Yeah.
how did I want the next, I was in my low 40s. I thought, how do I want the next 40, 50 years of my life to look? There's a lot of longevity in my family. My parents are currently 94 and 92 years old and in pretty good
Wow.
health. And so I know that if I didn't change my focus, that I was going down a really dangerous path. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to have energy. I want to live. My goal right now is to live as healthy as I possibly can with no medications for as long as I possibly can. And so that then became my goal, not just that, oh, I want to look good and I want to fit into my clothes, but I really wanted to feel good. And so that started this transformation, this journey that I've been on for 20 years. And so I didn't go on another diet. I made lifestyle changes.
Love
And it
it.
took time and it took energy and ups and downs, but here I am 20 years later, still medication free, healthy. I'm able to do the things that I want to do, and that's what really excites me. And that's this journey of my own, this transformation led me to health coaching and to helping other women. And I've spent about the last 18 years helping other women to be able to lose weight.
Amazing. Amazing. So thank you, first of all, for sharing that because it's so powerful. And there were so many things in there that I was like, yes, yes. So I love all of it. And I think one of the biggest things that stuck out was, when you're talking about people's why, like when I'm talking with a client, the first thing is, well, I want to look good in my clothes. I want to look like I used to look. I want to do that. But then when you start digging deeper and you're like, well, why is that important? Why is that important? And you get down to that root of, I just want to be healthy. I just want to live long. I want to be here for my kids. I want to be here for my grandkids. I want to be medicine free. I want to, have the best long-term sustainable lifestyle that I can possibly have. And I think that when you can get down to things that are more than just the external, because the external comes along with it, right?
True.
So when you
Yes.
can dig down more into that root of why are we doing this,
Mhm.
it just makes your story so much more powerful. And I think
Yeah.
it gives more reason because
Mhm.
I mean, anybody can look good, right? So I love
Yeah.
that. The other thing
And
that you said, oh, go ahead,
it
sorry.
keeps you going, it keeps you going long term.
Yeah,
Because motivation is very temporary, and most of us lose our motivation in a couple weeks. But when you have that bigger reason and that bigger picture, you can keep going
exactly, exactly. And being able to come back to that reason, right? All the
for sure.
time is so
Yes. Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
The other thing that you said that just really resonated was, you stopped having a diet and you started living a lifestyle change.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that I think I say that every single day to my clients,
Yeah.
because I hate the word diet, first of all, because it's
Mhm.
such, to me, when I think of diet, I think of it's a temporary thing, right? Everybody does
Right.
a diet, everybody
Yeah.
loses
Yeah.
the weight, then everybody gains the weight back, and you do that yo-yo, and it's the thing to do. I mean, when you talk to somebody,
Right.
well, I'm on this diet or I'm on this diet, and changing that thought process, because I think when people say, well, I'm on a diet, it puts that temporary mindset in there too, right? It just gives them that
For sure.
temporary goal of, I'm just going to lose this weight until I get to this point, right? And
Yes.
then I'll
Yes.
do something else later. So I love how
Mhm.
you said I changed it from, this isn't a diet, this is a lifestyle. And that is 100% true, because you want to be the person that just is, this is how I eat. This is, I
Right.
drink my water. I move my body. I sleep. I do these things because this is a lifestyle. This is a person that I am. And I think when
Mhm.
people can make that change from oh, I'm on a diet to oh, this is who I am, it
Mhm.
helps so much as well,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, amazing, amazing. There were so many things in there that I was just like, oh, that's so good, that's so good. Okay, so
Yeah.
you have actually kept these 40 pounds off for 20 years, and you said this was
Mhm.
kind of like, it kind of catapulted you into health coaching and helping other women do the same thing, and
Mhm.
absolutely amazing, amazing that you've been able to do that. But what do you think has made that possible when so many other people struggle to maintain the long-term weight loss?
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about, that it has to be a lifestyle change. We have to stop chasing those short-term fixes. We have to, start thinking more long-term and how do I want to design my life? What do I want my life to look like? And I'll tell you a story. At the time that I was at my heaviest, we had a neighbor and she was 90 years old. Her name is Mrs. Axe. She, of course, has since passed, but she lived on her own. I would see her out in her yard gardening, and I thought, that's the woman I want to be when I'm 90.
Right.
And that when I kept that picture in my head of what do I want my life to look like when I'm 90, because the chances are pretty good that I'm going to live to my 90s. Even back then, my grandparents, I had a grandfather that passed away at 94 and a grandmother that passed away at 92. So even at that stage of my life, I knew that there's longevity in my family. And I thought, I want to design a life is not about being on that restrictive diet, not about what, okay, I have to cut out the bad foods or there's foods I can't eat or I have to follow this perfect meal plan. And I just wanted to start looking at what do I want to design my life to look like? And so that's totally a mindset shift.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a decision to do things differently than how you've done them in the past.
Right.
And a lot of times as I'm coaching women and over the years, women would say to me, like, when can I go back to eating normal? And the truth is your normal changes.
Right.
And so my normal today is so different than it was 20 years ago. And so it's really looking at your life, at your habits, your behaviors, your thoughts, your mindset, and redefining what your normal is.
Right.
And so there's a lot of work that goes into that. It's not necessarily easy, but it's sure worth it. I
Yeah.
can't imagine if I had spent the last 20 years doing more yo-yo and restrictive dieting, what my life would be like. I probably would be even heavier than I was when I was that 1 pound heavier than I went in to deliver my child, because that's not what works. It's about changing what's going on up here. It's about looking at how do I want to design my life.
100%, 100%. And there's so much into that, right? I mean, because it is,
Yeah,
like you said, it is more than just what you're eating. It is your whole lifestyle. And I love
right.
how you mentioned that your neighbor was out gardening. And
Yeah.
so, that is something I think so many people overlook too when they think about, longevity and stuff. My father-in-law, he was a pastor for years and years and years, and his that was his life, that was what he did. And
Uh-huh.
when he retired, it was really, he had some health issues. He was going deaf, so it became very much, he was kind of alone in his own thoughts because it was really hard to talk. um,
Yeah.
but the thing that I noticed with him, and he started declining really quickly after he left the church, and it was because he didn't have habits, right? He didn't have, or
Mhm.
he didn't have habits, but he didn't have hobbies either
Yeah.
his whole life.
Yeah.
And so it happens a lot of times, I think, too, when somebody is so, you get so caught up in your life now, right? Your work, if your kids are still home, all of these things, that you don't have those outside influences, or those outside hobbies that also bring you joy and give you something to look forward to. And
Yeah.
so it is,
Oh,
weight and lifestyle and longevity is more than just your diet.
right.
It's your whole outlook, it's your whole life. And
Yeah.
so what other things do you have in place that bring you joy that you can go out and do? And so I love how you mentioned that, you want to be her. You want to be the person that's out doing things and puttering around. And that's so important. And I think people need to, when we're talking, a lot of times we talk about what's your lifestyle, what is your whole lifestyle, what is it that brings you joy, what do you like to do? And it is so important, because it gives you other things to do. And you talked about mindset. I love mindset's like one of my
Mhm.
faves.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you have said before, which just I totally loved, was that you help people break free of the all or nothing mindset, which is is so hilarious because to me, when you think of the all or nothing mindset, to me it's like there's a law somewhere out there that diets begin on Monday, right? That's a law.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you do good on Monday because you're motivated. But Tuesday,
Yeah.
somebody brings in pizza for lunch. And so you have a piece of pizza and then it's all over. It's all
Right.
over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your day is done, your week is done. And because the law says you can only start a diet on Monday, then it's a free-for-all until Monday. I mean, you might as well just
Right.
do whatever. So yeah,
Yes. Oh
I
my
love
gosh, that's such a great description.
Right? I mean, that's it. But we all have that. It's like this, it's
Yeah.
this thought process. So can you explain how, can you dig a little bit deeper into what the all or nothing mindset is and why it's so damaging to us?
Hmm. Yeah. I can remember when I was doing the yo-yo dieting for 20 years, I would go into every plan that I started telling myself, I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to be
Right.
perfect. I'm going to be their best client ever. I'm going to lose weight faster than anybody else. And inevitably, as diets go, at some point in time, like you mentioned, somebody brings pizza in on Tuesday. Something happens in your life. Like we don't live in a bubble where we can be perfect. And
Right.
nobody is perfect and nothing is perfect. And so that's one thing when I started looking at, what needs to change for me so that I can lose weight and keep it off, I started looking at that mindset. And so many people that I've worked with over the years, they have that all or nothing mindset. I'm going to do this perfectly or I'm not going to do it at all. And so what I work with my clients on is what I call learning to live in the gray area.
Right.
And so you could call it all or nothing thinking or black and white thinking. And so the gray area is between the black and white, the all or nothing. And we're always on a scale
Hmm.
between that black and white. We're not static in one place. We're not always going to be on one end or the other. We're always going to be moving on this scale. And it gives you the opportunity to let go of the perfectionism and really get comfortable with your own humanness, your slip ups, bad days, holidays, and vacations, because that is life.
Right.
And when we can start just being okay with, some days are going to be easy, some days are going to be a real mess, and we learn how to bounce back instead of just spiraling down, instead of just waving that white flag and saying, okay, I'm done, I can't do anything, or yeah, it's Tuesday, I blew it today, so I'm going to blow the rest of the day, or I'm going to blow the rest of the week and I'll start again on Monday.
Right.
It's learning to say, you know what, I didn't make some great choices at that meal, but the next time I eat, I'm going to make some better choices or some different choices. It's bouncing back, it's getting back up. And I really feel that this takes practice,
Hmm.
that it's a skill. It's not something that just happens automatically. And so that's one reason why I feel like coaching is so important, is because to have somebody there to support you, to walk you through those hard days,
100%.
help you
Yeah.
get back on track. I used to really struggle when I would travel to get back on track after traveling. And in my head, travel was a free for all.
Right.
And,
It's
and so
vacation.
even just changing that mindset of, yeah, I can have fun when I can travel and I might have some special meals, but it doesn't mean it has to be totally off the rails.
Right.
And so again, just instead of the all or nothing, it's let's learn how to live in the gray area. Let's learn how to navigate back and forth, between the black and white and have some balance.
100%, 100%, because life is all about balance because you are going to have those holidays, right? Holidays come
Right.
almost every month now, right? We're going to have holidays,
Yes.
we're going to have birthdays, we're going to have summer where you got to have some ice cream. And
Right.
and it's that thought pattern that you're giving yourself permission to have a piece of birthday cake if it's somebody's
Mhm.
birthday or celebration or whatever it is. You just don't want to eat the whole cake, right?
Right.
You got to live
Yep.
in that balance. And then it's progress over perfection. It's
Yes.
it's, so today wasn't fantastic. That's okay. That tomorrow's I'm back on plan, right? I gave
Right.
myself permission to do this. And then not having that guilt because I think so many times we're told that you have to do it this way, right? This is
Mhm.
the again,
Yes.
it comes down to rules. We have all of
Yes.
these rules, whether they're spoken or unspoken, that we feel like we have to do it this way. It goes back to that perfection and giving yourself permission to enjoy life because you never want to look back and go, I was on this fantastic vacation, but the only thing I remember about that vacation was I was afraid to eat. I was
Yeah.
afraid to have an ice cream cone with my kids on the beach or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love and I think it does take practice because it's so ingrained in us and it's one of the hardest things to overcome is well, I wasn't perfect. I wasn't perfect
Right.
at that.
Yeah.
And to give yourself permission to be human and just enjoy that is fantastic.
And just to be okay with not being perfect. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I very much in the past have been a perfectionist and I want to do things perfect and I want to do them right. And so then when you're on a weight loss plan and you don't, and I can remember weight loss plans that the goal was to get you into ketosis. And I can
Right.
remember going in, for a weigh-in and saying, "Oh gosh, you ate pizza, that threw you out of ketosis. It's going to take you, a week to get back there." And just that shame
No,
and that
yeah.
guilt for not following it,
Right.
can be very detrimental to our mindset.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. And then it gets us to the why even bother. Well,
Right. Yeah.
why even bother? Why should I even do this? It's impossible or whatever.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
when we talk about, because many of our listeners are in premenopause, menopause, postmenopause, right?
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because I feel like premenopause is starting earlier and earlier than, ever. And all of a sudden, our bodies are working against us. So all of the things that used to work suddenly don't work anymore. And we're sitting
Hmm.
there going, well, I'm only eating 500 calories a day. I'm working out 700 days a week. I'm doing all
Yeah.
of the things I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing the cardio, I'm doing all of this stuff. But it's not understanding that our metabolism has changed so much because we are now in this other phase of our lives. So can you talk about how our metabolism does change during this stage and how it's smarter to work with it instead of against it?
Great question, and such an important question because our bodies do change and we feel like our bodies are betraying us because what worked before isn't the same. We don't feel the same. There's different things happening. And the main reason why is because our hormones are shifting, and that changes everything. So what happens in perimenopause, menopause is that our estrogen declines. And so that means that our metabolism just naturally slows down. Our metabolism, it means how many calories we burn every day. So when you have less estrogen, you're burning less calories. And a lot of times women don't realize that. And so what our natural mindset is to say, well, then I should eat less. Well, what happens too is if we don't eat enough, that also puts stress on our body, and then our body holds on to everything. And so once we hit this stage of our life, there's really four areas that we need to look at. We need to look at our nutrition, our exercise, our sleep, and our stress, because all of those factor into how our body works now that our hormones are changing. And so if we go on a super low calorie diet and our body is now under stress, our body is not going to lose weight the way it did before. Or if you think, oh, I just need to do more exercise, which I hear that one all the time, our body, when you start doing, it's just some really intense cardio or just exercising, spending more time at it, our body also says, okay, I'm under stress and I can't lose weight. And so there's just so much happening. It's really important to look at really the whole person. And
Right.
so the good news about all of this is that, you're not broken. Your body's just different.
Right.
And so we have to explore that and we have to see what is different. And, instead of restricting calories or pushing really hard through some punishing cardio, let's start working with your body.
Mhm.
And so let's find the right balance for you. Let's see, what calorie level does your body actually need? What kind of exercise does your body actually need? And so once you start shifting the strategy and you do things a little bit different, even just looking like, are you getting enough sleep or are you waking up because a hot flashes 20 times a night?
Right.
Looking at things like that and looking at the whole person, then we can start making some changes that actually are going to work. And what I find is that women stop blaming themselves, like, oh, I
Mhm.
just can't do it. I just don't have the motivation to, okay, this is going to be different now. And you're going to then start seeing results, but also too, the results are going to be a little different. A
Right.
half a pound, even a quarter pound of weight loss when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s is good. And
Yeah.
we have to recognize that. And we have to say, okay, this is how the process is going to be now.
Right, right. Because I think too, a lot of times people just think, well, this is how I used to be, and I want to
Mhm.
get back to who I was. But
Yes.
the thing is, we're not that person anymore.
Right.
And we're not
Yeah.
supposed to be that person anymore. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of times we forget that it's okay to step into who we are now and let that person be who they were, because
Yeah.
we're supposed to be different, and our bodies have gone through more things now, and it's awesome, the things that our bodies have been able to do, whether it's, for those of us who have had children, that's amazing that our bodies have been able to go through that
Right.
but regardless, our bodies have brought us to where we are today, and we need to be able to celebrate it and go, yeah, these are amazing. And I am a new person than I was before. And I think that's so, so important. And just giving ourselves the grace to accept that and be like, yeah,
Yeah,
I lost a half a pound or I lost a quarter of a pound. That's a celebration right there. You know, that scale
that
is
sure is.
moving finally down to
Yes,
where, you know, we're going in positive direction. So
yes.
amazing, amazing.
And I
Uh,
think to look at the other indicators of success, it's not just the number on the scale.
right.
It's how do I feel? How do my clothes fit? The scale might not move, but your clothes are fitting better. You
Yes.
know, are my numbers looking better? My blood sugar, my blood pressure, my cholesterol, all of those things are factors that figure into our overall health. And to look at all of those things
Yeah,
and
100%.
celebrate the successes that we're having.
Yeah. I saw a oh, it was on I think Instagram or something. This girl that was talking and she was talking about how, you know, non-scale victories, because non-scale victories 100%, you know, so important. And she was talking about how, you know, she had her goal for as long as she could remember was she wanted to get to 130 pounds. If she was at 130 pounds, everything was going to be okay, right? All
Mhm.
everything in life was going to be fine.
Yeah,
And so she'd get down to 130 pounds. So she put a picture of this is what I look like at 130 pounds.
yeah,
And she looked good, obviously, right? But then the next picture was she was like, then I discovered what my body needed. I discovered the nutrition that my body needed, how I needed to, so that I felt good. She said, because over here, I was doing the yo-yo dieting. I was, you know, taking all of the weight loss pills and all of the things that were going to be magic for me. And my gut was in a mess. It was a disaster. And I wasn't sleeping and I felt horrible and all of these things were going on. But I was at 130 pounds. And she said, so
yeah,
over here, she said, I started healing myself. I started healing my gut. I started sleeping. I started strength training. I started doing these type of things. And she said, this is what I look like at 135 pounds. And her body composition was so much better because of course she had been lifting weights but not only that, but the nutrition and just almost the glow about her because she was
yeah,
healthy and she felt good. And she,
yeah,
you know, she said, I worked on my whole self. I worked on my, you know, body, soul, spirit, you know, the whole 9 yards. And she said,
yeah,
and this is really where I'm happy and this is where I'm healthy. And the difference was shocking, right? I mean, it
yeah,
was shocking to see. It was actually really, really cool to see.
yeah.
So let's talk about restriction and burnout because so many times we put, you know, especially with our diet and stuff, and we put ourselves into those restrictions and everything, and we're in this horrible cycle of this is what we have to do. And then we get so tired and it's just this huge burnout that we go through. So how do you help people begin to shift out of that mindset of restriction and burnout into health and longevity and nutrition that way?
Yeah. You know, this is such an important conversation because so many women are stuck in this cycle and they don't realize it. And, you know, what I see a lot is, you know, people scroll on socials and, oh gosh, this new idea, I'm going to try this. And they're looking for the quick fix, you
Mhm.
know, and then they end up just frustrated and they're defeated. And so it's really, again, looking at like this can be a little bit of a puzzle as our bodies shift, as our bodies change. And so if we're just cutting calories or we're doing a whole bunch of cardio, we're following the same rules, but nothing is changing now. Like that worked before,
Mhm.
but now it's not working. And so, you know, I find people are frustrated, confused, just feel defeated. And sometimes even clients will say to me or you know women that I talk to like I guess I'm just going to settle, like this is just how it's going to be. I'm going to be overweight, I'm going to be on blood pressure medications, my blood sugar's high. I guess I just have to settle for that because as we get older we always gain weight. And that's what burnout looks like. That's
Right.
when you know when you've just given up hope and you're ready to settle. And again, just like your example that you just shared of the woman, how I'm much healthier. I feel better at 135 than 130. Let's look at this puzzle. Let's look at what your body needs. And you know, at this point in life, it might not be that you're, you know, wearing a whatever size would seem small to you, whether it's a 2, 4, 6, 10, whatever. You might not be wearing that size, But again, it goes back to, am I healthy?
Right.
Can I do the things that I want to do? And if not, then what do we have to change to get you to that point? As I've said, like for me, I don't want to ever have to go on medication.
Right.
And high blood pressure does run in my family. And so just being medication free, I mean, I'm 62 years old and I don't take any medications. I take some supplements,
That's
but
fantastic. Hmm.
when I look at the people that I work with, like a lot of people by 62 are on medications. And so it's looking at, again, designing your life. What do you want your life to look like? Understanding how your body has changed, understanding that your body needs different things now than it did when you were in your 20s, 30s, maybe even in your 40s. So to shift out of that burnout, we have to stop chasing just that restriction, those quick fixes, and we have to start looking at the whole person.
Right.
Like what everything that's going on with my body, what does my body need? And again, it's not just the nutrition, it's not just the exercise, but the sleep, the stress, your habits, all of
Hmm.
those things work together. And so how can we get change that mindset to get past that all or nothing, that restrictive mindset, and start working with what actually works for our body?
And 100%, 100%. And let's talk a little bit about sleep because I think that sleep is one of the most underrated um, pieces of the puzzle that people don't realize. Just, that old adage that sleep is the best medicine, and
Mm,
sleep is when our body heals, sleep is when our body rejuvenates, sleep is when we lose the weight, all of those things. People
yeah,
don't really understand, I don't think, how important sleep is
yeah.
to us. And especially as we're getting older and we're trying to lose the weight and we're trying to do all of these new things and build this new lifestyle. So can you talk a little bit about sleep there?
I sure can. Never had problems with sleep until really probably after once I was in menopause, postmenopausal. And now I have some good nights and some bad nights, and that's
Mhm.
just kind of life. But I think so what happens with sleep is that our body needs melatonin to sleep. So there's two hormones that work together for sleep. One is cortisol, one is melatonin. So what happens in the morning as our body is waking up is our body is starting to produce cortisol. And cortisol, we hear that as a stress hormone, but that also gives us energy. That gives us the energy to be able to get through our day and be productive. So our body in the morning starts producing cortisol. It will keep producing cortisol till early afternoon. Then it starts to decrease and it starts to produce melatonin so that we can sleep at night. And then if our body has enough melatonin, we'll sleep. We should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then that gives our body the chance to rejuvenate and regenerate and to be able to, like you said, to be able to lose the weight. And so if that cycle of our hormones is not happening, then you can eat, exactly the right calories that your body needs and get the exact amount of exercise. But if you're not getting that proper sleep to rejuvenate and regenerate, you might not see a shift in the scale.
Right.
And our current lifestyle is so busy, and we're on our computers, we're on our phones, we're on devices, until we go to sleep at night, and then we go to bed and we scroll through our phone, and that affects our melatonin and our
Mhm.
body's ability to produce melatonin. So sometimes it's just looking at somebody's sleep habits and looking at, okay, let's see how we can get you better sleep before we even look at what you're eating,
Right.
because if you're not sleeping, it really doesn't matter
Right.
what kind of a
Exactly.
meal plan we would discuss, because it's not going to happen.
Right, right. And the importance of a sleep routine, even if it's just, giving yourself an hour without any screens before you go to sleep.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's such a huge, huge change for so many people. It's just like, what do you mean I
Yes.
can't be on my phone until I turn my light? Even when my lights are out, I can't be on my phone. What are you talking about? That's crazy. And yeah,
Yeah.
but just creating those new sleep routines to let them actually just their body go, oh, it is nighttime. It is time for me to
Yeah.
go to sleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
so important. You've mentioned, let's talk again about mindset because mindset, like I said, is my favorite. So you've mentioned that mindset plays a huge role in transformation. So what are some practical ways that women can start rewiring their thoughts around food and their body? So what do you help people like? let's start this transition. How do you start rewiring their thoughts that way?
There are really two techniques that I use and that I teach my clients. And the first is simple but powerful, not necessarily easy, but it is simple. And it's just starting to recognize your thoughts and are your thoughts leading you towards your goals? And then once you recognize them, then you can start to change them. An example that I have from my own life is that as I mentioned, I've always been more of a cardio girl. I've been a runner. I've run marathons, half marathons. Now I do more walking as I've gotten older. But you always hear you have to strength train. And, really, especially, I would say starting in your 40s, we need to be paying attention to muscle because we start losing muscle mass at age 20. And it just, especially after 60, it starts to accelerate a little bit. And so for all these years, I said, I don't like to lift weights. I'm not a weightlifter. I don't like going to the gym. I don't lift weights. About 2 years ago, I heard my own thoughts. And it was really kind of a light bulb moment because I thought, you know what? I'm saying to myself exactly the things that I'm teaching my clients to change. And I finally recognized that if I keep telling myself that I don't like to lift weights, I will never lift weights.
Right.
And so I had to consciously, first of all, I caught myself in that thought. I recognized it for the first time, and I had heard myself say it a million times to myself, but I'd never like recognized and thought, okay, this has to change. And I consciously changed that thought.
Hmm.
And so that's really the next step. First is to recognize the thoughts. The second step then is to consciously make a decision that I'm not going to think that thought. Now, I didn't change it from, oh, I hate to lift weights to I love to lift weights because that's not true.
Right.
And so I changed the thought to I'm going to enjoy the changes that I see in my body as I start lifting weights.
Right.
Or I can go do this whether I want to or not. It doesn't necessarily have to be super fun, but I can do this because it's a positive change and it's going to continue to lead me to where I want to be in my life. And so again, about 2 years ago, I started lifting weights. I have been consistent. Um, I've seen changes. I don't always love it. I don't always want to go do it. But if I notice that thought of, oh, I really don't feel like doing that today, I'm just like, you know what? You can do it. No big
Yeah.
deal. Just go do it. And just really changing that thought process. And a technique that I teach my clients is what I call changing the channel. If you're, let's say, driving down the road in your car and you have the radio on and there's a song that you don't like that comes on, what do?
Change it.
We simply change it.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'm going to change it. And so it's recognizing your thoughts that are going through your head. And then if it's not a thought that's taking you towards your goal, if it's not a thought that you like, that you want to be thinking, we have the power to change that thought. And so just being very intentional about, okay, this is how I'm changing my thought. 20 years ago, when I lost my weight, I couldn't look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm skinny because I didn't believe that. But I could say to myself, I'm getting thinner and thinner every day, or I'm getting healthier and healthier every day. So it's finding those thoughts that will help to support your goals and will lead you to the future that you want to have.
100%. 100%. Oh my gosh. I use so many of the same analogies there. Only mine is like you change this
Yeah.
channel on the TV, right? You got the remote. You
Yep.
change that channel. You're the only one that can. Our thoughts,
Yeah.
I think, I think that our thoughts, and you're right, it is really hard to change them, especially when we have so many thoughts that we don't even recognize that we're thinking, right?
Right.
But that
Yep.
is like our superpower because there
Hmm.
is nobody else who can change those thoughts. It's just us, right?
Yep.
And what we think about, we bring about, and what we
Yep.
think is our truth. So then when you look at that thought of, you know, I hate to lose weight or I hate to lift weights. And then if
Yep.
you can look at that thought and go, okay, that thought is definitely a thought that is not serving me because the truth is I need to lose or I need to lift weights because I need to have that muscle for my well-being going forward. So how can I
Yep.
change that? I love that because yeah, our thoughts are our superpower and whether we use it for the good or we use it for the evil over ourselves
Yeah.
is our choice. And is it hard to change? 100%, but recognizing those thoughts as they come up and recognizing those thoughts are tied to our emotions. And so when we feel that our emotions are so, they're spiraling, it's like why am I spiraling right now? What thought am I thinking? And so even just taking the time to write down that thought, and even if you can just write it down then and walk away and then come back later and go, okay, that was the thought that was causing all of my emotional stress. And then look at that thought and go, is that a true thought, or is that not a true thought?
For
So
sure.
your
Yeah.
thought of I'm not skinny, was that true? Well, no, it's not true. But how can I make it true for me? Or how can I change that and make a true statement out of that fear statement? Because that, when you're thinking thoughts that are not true, those are based in fear, right? And based in
Right.
in lies,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and being able to understand that is just such a powerful, powerful tool that we have. And a lot of people are like, well, I can't control it. Well, yeah, you can. That's actually your superpower. And so step
True.
into that superpower
Yeah.
because that's amazing. And you're the only one that can do that.
Yeah.
Um, so love it. Love it. What are some of the most common habits or beliefs you see women holding on to that are holding them back from success? And how do you help them reframe that? So again, kind of the same type of thing, but instead of thought patterns, habits that you see are holding people back.
I think what I hear most often is that, nothing that I try works, or I've tried everything and I still can't lose weight. Uh, and so really what we have to do when that's your belief, that I've tried everything, nothing works, is yes, we have to look at, okay, let's dig deeper. Let's see what you have tried. Let's see if you've given it enough time and that, you're doing the things that are appropriate at this stage of your life. You're doing what your body needs now. Again, I find a lot of people that, there's so much information. We have information
Mhm.
overload. And so they go, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, wherever, and they see this idea, oh, I'm going to try this. And they try something for a week. Oh, well, that didn't work. Okay, well, let me try this. And you're not giving your body the time to really do what it needs and to work for you. And so I think it's really looking at, what does my body need? Again, it's long term.
Mhm.
In my program, I talk a little bit about tiny habits and small changes. So often we want quick results.
Right.
We want big results. We want to try something for a week or two and we want that scale to drop 5, 10 pounds. And number one, it might, but it's not going to stay off. Those
Right.
pounds will come right back on. And so it's looking at, okay, what is one small step that I can take? What is one small change? And so, like you just mentioned, like writing things down, it's, actually look at what you want your future to look like. Dream about what you want your future to look like. How do you want to live your life? How do you want to move through your life? How do you want, I have children and grandchildren, and I love being able to run around with my kids. I love being able to get down on the floor with them and play and do all the things that I want to do. And so it's looking at, like, and maybe even writing down, like, and visualizing, what do you want your life to look like, as opposed to the quick fixes that, okay, I have to get this weight off now. Again, it's not just about the number on the scale. It's about
Mhm.
creating a life. And that starts with looking at, like, okay, what are my habits? What do I do day in and day out that's not leading me towards my goals, and how can I change those? And then, what do I want my life to look like? Not just a year from now, but 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. And really, what do I have to put in place to make that happen?
Right. And then just taking that first step, right? Yeah. Because I think so many times like you said, we got that information overload. And so when you have the information overload, then it almost leads to a paralysis when you're like, well, I got to do this, and this. And it's just, it's too much. It's too much. So what is that first step? Because when you take that first step, that action, when you
Mhm.
take an action, that leads to another action and that leads to another.
Yeah,
And it gets you out of that paralysis where you're like, oh, I took a step and I survived it. So
yeah,
let's go ahead and do that again.
Yeah.
And that breeds confidence, and that breeds evidence of, oh yeah, I'm moving forward, and that's fantastic. That's where I want to go. So yeah, and I love that, and creating that vision, and I think it's so important to create a vision of who who you are now compared
Yeah.
to, and who you want to be compared, not that what anybody else thinks of you, or anything else. It's who am I, and what do I want to do, and how am I going to get there? Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
um so there's this, one of the things that have been around forever and ever, and you hit on it kind of when you were saying, people say, well, I've tried everything, right? I've tried everything. And there's so many women I talk to who are like, well, I went to the doctor and he said, just eat less and move more. That's all you need to
Mhm.
do. Just eat less and move more. That's been around forever. It's what's worked forever. And
Yeah.
I've done that and I've done that, and it's still not working. So how do you help? Um, or what are your thoughts, I guess, on that eat less, move more philosophy that's been around forever?
Yeah. 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 Great question. Um, that phrase really has been drilled into us. And like you said, a lot of times from the medical world. And I'm not saying this to blame doctors, but doctors are not trained in nutrition or behavior change.
Right,
Their job is to treat illness. And so when we go to see a physician, it's usually because we have either a chronic illness or we have some kind of acute condition that needs to be treated. And their job is to treat that. So if you go in and you have high blood pressure, the doctor is going to treat that. And how they're going to treat that most of the time, a lot of the time, is to give you a medication.
right,
Nowadays, more so, you might hear, hey, let's try making some lifestyle changes. And then you might ask the doctor, like, what does that mean? What kind of lifestyle changes should I make? What should I eat? How many calories should I eat? Or what should I do for exercise? And the doctor really can't. Number one, they don't have the time to provide that information. And number two, a lot of times they just don't have that training. That is not their expertise. And that's really where coaches come in, because that's what we help with. And when I work with women, I'm not going to give you a specific meal plan. I'm going to give you guidance. I'm going to help you to learn, what does your body actually need for nutrition. But it's looking at, like, what is causing the high blood pressure. The
right,
doctor's going to treat it with a medication, but I'm going to help you look at, why do you have high blood pressure? Granted, it could be just genetic, but usually it's not. Usually
right.
it's due to lifestyle. And so it might mean that you do eat less. It might mean that you eat differently.
Mhm.
It might mean that you do move more than you are today, because if you don't do any exercise, we're going to start to talk about that and how can you get more movement in. But it's not that generic, okay, well, you just have to eat vegetables, munch on carrots all day long, and you have to, do this kind of exercise, because we have to approach it from the standpoint of, why is the extra weight there? What's happening with your metabolism? What kind of nutrition does your body need now? What movement supports your energy, your joints, your goals? So that we can get you to where you want to be. And it's not as simple as just, well, eat less and move more. It's
Right.
really diving into, like, what would that actually look like and mean? It's not generic. It's personalized for each person. It's as I said, a little bit of a puzzle, because
Yeah.
everybody's body is different. So what you need and what I need are two different things, but it's figuring out, what does your body need. And so lasting change doesn't come just from the blanket advice, hey, eat less, move more, but it's just really understanding, like, what is your body going through? What does your body need? Let's work with it and not against it.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. And I think too, sometimes, we look for that, one size fits all. And we
Mhm.
forget, it's like what you said, what works for you may not work for me. And but sometimes I think people, they just get so frustrated because they're like, well, I tried that, it didn't work for me. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that we are each wonderfully and beautifully made, and we're
Yeah.
made differently. And so, because we're made differently, there's a joy in that. And so, I think it's so fun to dig into each person and go, what works for you? Let's figure out what is specific for you. And that's kind of fun. I think
Yes.
it's kind of
Yeah.
fun because I'm like, look at you, you can eat that. I can't eat that. Is it good? You
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and working that puzzle out and just taking joy in our own individuality in finding
Mhm.
that specific way that our body responds best to food. I think
Yes.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. Um,
And I think one of the hardest things for a lot of times for us as women is having the patience to go through that process, that puzzle of figuring it out. Again, it's not like a, restrictive diet that you're going to go on in the first 2 weeks, you're going to see that scale drop significantly. It might mean that the first 2 weeks you don't lose anything,
right,
because we're figuring this out and having the patience to stick with it and just to
right,
keep going.
right, 100%. And enjoying the journey, and realizing it
Yes.
is a journey,
Yeah,
right? Instead of a quick fix. This is not a quick fix. This is a journey. This is your life.
for sure.
So let's get into it. Yeah, love it. How do you help people? So when somebody is just like, okay, I'm going on this diet, this lifestyle change, and I'm gonna not be able to have my tacos anymore or my chips and salsa or whatever it is. So how do
Mhm.
you help? And I say that because that's my fave. How do you help clients enjoy their favorite foods without feeling guilty and without giving them permission to just go out of control over all of it?
Yeah. Our brains work in a funny way. And so if we say, oh, I can never eat something again, that's all your brain is going to want. It's like putting a
100%.
1-year-old in a room with 100 toys and you put one in the corner and say, you can't play with that one. That's the only one that child is going to want.
Right. Well, and not only
So,
that, but you think, you can't tell me what to do. I'm an adult. I do what I want.
yes, yeah, yeah. And I've heard that. I can eat
Yeah,
whatever I want and I'm an adult.
I'm an adult.
And
Yeah.
you can. You can
Hmm.
eat whatever you want. And so my biggest struggle has always been chocolate. I love sweets. I love chocolate. And so that mindset of, oh, I could never have that again. I can actually remember that feeling of thinking, I actually have a friend who when I met her, she had lost 100 pounds and she had not eaten sugar for like a really long time. And I can remember the thought that went through my head is, you mean I can't eat a Christmas cookie ever again? And to me, that was like, it was scary.
Right.
And so what happens is when we say, I'm not going to eat these foods at all, we just want them more.
Hmm.
And so we have to, again, it's a mindset shift. And instead of allowing our brain to feel deprived, we have to say, how can I manage this? And so like for me, one of my favorite things in the world is M&Ms, especially peanut butter M&Ms. But I know that I cannot keep those in my home.
Right.
And I never have them in my home because I know that's something that I struggle with a lot, even today. If I want to have them, the thought process that I use a lot is, you know what, I'm not going to eat those today, but maybe I will tomorrow. And I can actually tell myself that for months. And then at some point in time, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to have some of those today. And then what I do is I buy a single serving package and I eat them and I eat them slowly and I enjoy them. And then I know I might not eat them again for months.
Right.
And so it's being intentional. It might mean that you can still eat those foods, but it's smaller portions. Another thing I love is ice cream. What I do for ice cream is I have these small little coffee cups, and that's what I use for ice cream because I can put a very small amount in there. And so I can still have it, and it's satisfying, but it's a smaller portion.
Right.
And I don't eat it as often. And so it's really again looking at your mindset and your thoughts, and it's not that I can never eat these foods, it's that I'm going to make more informed decisions as to when I'm going to eat them and how much. And so let's not cut all your favorite foods out because all you're going to do is want them. Let's learn how to enjoy them in a sensible way, and then also set up your own environment for your success.
Right, right. And realizing that you're in control and the food's not in control, right? Food is just
Exactly.
food. And so
Yep.
you control the food doesn't control you. That's
Yes, very
awesome.
much so.
Um, so can you share a success story of a woman that you've worked with, someone who found freedom and real results from following your method?
Sure. One person that comes to mind is Barb. And a lot of times when I work with people or somebody's considering working with me, they always ask, well, how much weight do people lose when they work with you? And so she did lose weight. I have a 12-week program. She was a part of that program, and she lost 10 pounds during that 12 weeks, which is awesome. And so as we worked together in my lifestyle 180-degree weight loss solution program, what became more important than the number on the scale was that Barb is a single empty nester. And what had caused her to gain weight was the fact that she was eating a lot of just quick, convenient foods, just because it's kind of hard to cook for one. And so she had gotten into some bad habits of, not eating super nutritious food, not eating many vegetables, just again, those quick, easy type of meals. And she wasn't feeling good physically, emotionally, and just she was ready to make some changes and some lifelong changes. And yes, she wanted that number on the scale to move, but more importantly, she wanted to feel energized, healthy, strong. Her daughter was getting married. She knows there's going to be future grandchildren in the picture. And so those were her motivations. And she wants to be able to, play with those future grandkids and get down on the floor and just feel great in her body. And so what we really worked on was just setting up her environment for success, helping her to build just some simple strategies and habits and resources so that she could eat good, healthy, nutritious food that worked for her, cooking for one. I think a lot of times too, people say, well, gosh, if I cook for myself, I end up throwing so much away. And so just really getting some systems in place so that wasn't happening. And, just really in those 12 weeks, she got to a point where, yes, she lost the weight, but she also had some good strategies and systems in place. She had a foundation that we built so that her routines were a little bit different and she could actually eat good, healthy food, see the transformation that she wanted to see, and know that it was strategy she could continue with forever.
It's awesome. That's awesome. And so powerful, right? It all comes back to those foundations and how strong is your foundation. And that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You offer a free guide called Top 3 Strategies to Manage Menopausal Weight Gain. What can women expect from this resource and why should they start there?
Well, really, if you're, 40 plus and you hit a wall with weight loss and you just don't know what to do, you feel like nothing is working no matter what you try, then first of all, you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. Chances are you're frustrated though, and you're tired of the gimmicks and you're looking for something real. And so that's really why I created this guide, because it gives you the strategies that you need, actionable steps that you can put in place today that can shift your metabolism, that you can start seeing the scale go down in the right direction. Not fast, as we've talked about already today, but that's okay because losing weight at this stage of life isn't about those quick drops. It's about steady and sustainable changes. And so the tips in the guide just really help you to start putting some things in motion that can get you to where you want to be. And it will help to stop the overwhelm and the diet hopping and just give you a little bit of clarity and confidence. And again, it goes back to those small steps. When you take one small step after another, before you know it, you're going to be at the top of the ladder.
Right.
I can remember a woman that I've been working with, and she said to me a few weeks ago, she said, it all started with drinking water.
Right.
And I thought, man, that is so true. And she's made a ton of progress, but it all goes back to that's the first change she made was she started drinking water.
Right.
And sometimes we think, well, what difference will that make? And so it's taking those small steps. And that's what the guide will help you with is what are the small steps that I can start taking?
I love that. I love that. And yeah, and just start with one. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What is it, the biggest mindset shift? I got to make clear on that. Mindset shift that helps you maintain your transformation. And what are you hoping that the women listening will embrace today?
I think for me, the biggest mindset shift, that is hard to say.
Say it 3 times.
Yes, I'm not going to. It's just letting go of the perfectionism. And as I said, I used to live in that all or nothing space, that just black and white. And I thought if I couldn't eat perfectly, if I couldn't exercise exactly right, I had to follow every rule that then I would fail. And that is the thinking that kept me stuck. That's the thinking that kept me in yo-yo dieting for 20 years. And so when I did learn how to live in that gray area, how to be flexible, how to be okay with myself if I wasn't doing things great or if I had a rough day, just to give myself permission to not do everything perfectly, that's really when things changed. And so there's some days that I eat really well and really healthy. I get my workout in, I'm totally on track. And then there are days like holidays or birthdays or just life happens, whether it's, comfort food, cookies, moments that matter more than what my macros are. And that's okay.
Right. Right.
Weight loss isn't just about food and exercise. It's really about that mindset. And success starts with the thoughts that you think every single day.
I love
And
that.
so as I work with women, I help them to believe in themselves again. I really help them to stop some of that self-sabotage, because when you're trying to be perfect and you have that all or nothing thinking, you are sabotaging yourself all the time. And just, I really help them to break that cycle so that they can just start creating the life that they are dreaming of and it seems to be elusive to them, and so if you're listening today, what I recommend, first of all, stop chasing perfectionism, start building some sustainable habits and thought processes. And it's okay to ask for support. It's okay to get a coach. None of us go through life alone, usually. And the things that we really achieve that matter, usually we don't do them alone. And so get a support system around yourself because that's what's going to help to keep you accountable. That's what's going to help you when you do get off track to get back on track. And that's what's going to help you to know that you can do this.
Amazing.
Yes, my life's a little different, my body's a little different. Um, Especially women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they might be in this sandwich generation where they're raising kids, grandkids, and have elderly parents. That's kind of the place that I'm at this point. My kids are grown, but I have grandkids and I have elderly parents and, running a business. And so there's a lot on our plates.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to have a partner to be able to help and support you is just so essential.
Amazing. Amazing. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
100%.
Yeah, yeah, I love all that. So amazing, so powerful. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your heart with us. Your message is so powerful, so for so many people, and women especially to hear. And you're living proof, right? That change is possible and long lasting. And I just am so thankful for you sharing your story with us today. Can you share how anyone listening, if they want to connect with you, I'll make sure I have all of your information in the show notes, but can you go ahead and share about your Lifestyle 180 program and how to grab your free copy of the 3 strategies to manage menopausal weight gain, and then just where they can find you on socials?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me on today and giving me this opportunity. It's been a blast to chat with you. And just thank you for sharing giving me the chance to share a little bit of my story with you and with your listeners. I am on Instagram at Coach Julie K. I am on Facebook at Spark 180. So it's SPARKE 180. And then I think you said you'll post the link to my free guide in the show notes so that you can get my free guide there. And then I have a program called the Lifestyle 180-Degree Weight Loss Solution. And it is a 12-week program, and I work with women, of course, to help you get that scale moving a little bit, but really all of the things that we talked about today. We dive a lot into your mindset and your thoughts. We talk about your habits and your behaviors that are kind of keeping you stuck where you're at and really help you to put strategies in place will last a lifetime for you. That it's not a quick fix. It's not okay, you're going to go on a 12-week program and, lose 25 pounds. It's learning how to live a lifestyle will take you through the rest of your life and help you to achieve the goals that you want and live the life that you want.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate you being here. I'm excited that we made this connection, and yeah, just look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Well, thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure.
If today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and visit www.mindycurtishealthcoach.com to take a free toxicity quiz and schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation. Until next time, you are wonderfully and beautifully made.